All right, everyone, I'm going to show you how to wire up different clipping diodes onto a toggle switch, and then how to wire the toggle switch to a drive pedal. I'm going to use a tube screamer as an example, but you can do this to any drive pedal with clipping diodes. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to wire up the diodes onto the mini toggle so you can see how it's done. And then I'll go over these other switches in detail. I'll have all the voltages on screen as well as the wiring diagrams. Lastly, once everything is plugged in, we'll listen to all the clipping diodes on the drive pedal. All right, this is an on switch. So it's on, off, on. We'll have a set of diodes on this side, a different set of diodes on the other side, and in the middle it's off, no diodes. So we'll get three different clipping options on one drive pedal. These are 1N914 silicon diodes. These are 1 volt each. The positive is on one side and the negative is on the other. The negative can be indicated by a black stripe on one side. For symmetrical wiring, I'm going to reverse one of the diodes so they're opposite from each other. And I like to twist them together for this mod. All right, it should look something like that. I'm going to add one side of the diode. I'm going to solder it to the one side of the lug of the switch there. Now, to do asymmetrical wiring, I have two of the same diodes wired in series with each other. So I have negative going into the positive. These are, like I said, these are 1 volt apiece. So now that they're in series, this is 2 volts. And we want the other diode going the opposite way, just like before. All right, yours should look something like that. All right, so your switch should look something like that. Each set of diodes is soldered to one side or the other lug, and I'm going to join the other sides together. All right, your switch should look something like that. Our positives, we'll call it positive. Our positives are going to be on the switch, and the negatives are going to be on the joining opposite side there. We're going to add wires to this now. I'm going to add a wire to the center lug. All right, there's a wire there on the center lug. And I'm going to add a wire on our joining piece right here. All right, so your switch should look like this. All right, let's look at the different clipping options we have and their voltages. This is the switch we just got done wiring up. All the diodes are 1N914 silicon diodes, and they're 1 volt each. On the left lug, we have 2 diodes wired symmetrically. So that's 1 volt going one direction and 1 volt going the opposite direction. On the right lug, we have 2 diodes wired in series and 1 going the opposite direction. So we have 2 volts going one way and 1 volt going the opposite way. The offset of voltages is what's going to give you the asymmetrical edgy tone. This toggle switch is wired exactly like that first one, except I'm using 1N34A germanium diodes, and they're half a volt apiece. So on the left lug, we have 2 diodes wired symmetrically, so we have half a volt going one way and half a volt going the other way. On the right lug, we have 2 diodes wired in series and 1 going the other way. So we have 1 volt going one direction and half a volt going the other direction. Again, the offset of voltages is what's going to give you the asymmetrical tone. On this toggle switch, on the right lug, we have 2 red LEDs wired symmetrically. Each LED is 2 volts, so we have 2 volts going one direction and 2 volts going the opposite direction. On the left lug, I have 1 germanium diode and 1 silicon diode. It's wired symmetrically, but the voltages are different. We have 1 volt going one way and half a volt going the other way. Again, the difference in voltages is going to give you an asymmetrical tone, even though this is wired up symmetrically. Lastly, this is my favorite type of clipping. I call this type of clipping hybrid clipping. On the right lug, we have 2 LEDs wired up symmetrically. We have 1 red LED and 1 green LED. The red LED is 2 volts and the green LED is 3 volts. The offset of voltages here is going to give you an asymmetrical tone, even though this is wired up symmetrically. On the left lug, we have 2 silicon diodes in series to equal 2 volts and 1 LED, a red LED, going the opposite, which is also 2 volts. So we have 2 volts going one direction and 2 volts going the opposite direction. In theory, that is symmetrical, even though it's wired up asymmetrically. All right, I installed the toggle switch where I like it. Again, this can be done to any drive pedal that has clipping diodes. The clipping diodes on a tube screamer are right here. There's 1 clipping diode on the bottom and 1 on the top. I already unsoldered these diodes, so I'm just going to pull them out. And I'm going to put our new lead wires from the toggle switch in the place of where one of those diodes were. It doesn't matter what side of the wire goes on. It doesn't matter if it's on the top or bottom row of where the diodes were. Here it is on the other side. Everything is touching on this column and on this column. That's why it doesn't matter which holes you really put it in. And there it is. I guess we'll demo all 4 of the clipping diodes or all four of the toggle switches, and we'll see what we like. All right, I have some guitar licks on a loop pedal, so there's no variation in guitar playing as I go through the clipping settings. I have the drive knob all the way up, and the only adjustment I'm going to be making is to the volume. All right, thanks for watching. This is the final product. I modified the circuit and gave it a new paint job. I have a video called How to Modify a Tube Screamer, where you can do a lot of these mods yourself.